What's going on, guys? It's your boy Jack here, taking a look at another NBA draft prospect here at Talking Ball. And today, looking at Giles, the forward from Duke, listed at 6'10" or so, a little over a 7-foot wingspan and 240 pounds. He's probably not 240 pounds, I'll tell you that from watching him throughout the course of the season. Definitely lacked upper body strength, and part of that was because of the injuries. Right? And that is why, to me, this guy is the biggest enigma in this year's draft class. There were tremendous flashes that he showed throughout his freshman season at times, and yes, they were limited, but they were tremendous. And, you know, obviously with all the success he had as a high school player, obviously mostly his sophomore and junior years, as his freshman year, he had a devastating knee injury where he tore his ACL and MCL and I believe, other cartilage in there. And then his senior year, in one of his first games at Oak Hill, if not his first game, his first official game, tore his ACL in his other knee. And then at Duke, he had another procedure on his knee as well, arthroscopic, and that caused him to be delayed into mid-December until he debuted for the team, and that left him far behind. And it really was a season-long question mark. Well, in the beginning of the season, it was, when's he going to play? When's he going to play? So much hype surrounding him. And then once he started to play, it was, well, when's he going to look like the guy that we expected him to be, the player that everyone had talked him up to be? And when that didn't happen, still that conversation continued throughout much of the season, obviously. But when it didn't happen, people were very suspect about Giles and the player that he was in high school. And I think the thing you got to remember is it was 2 seasons, almost 2 full seasons before he played in a game. And that is just a long time to come back and be expected to play at a high level. And it showed. He didn't have the confidence that you would like to see from a player. He didn't look sure of himself at times. He was, he wasn't in great condition. That was clear, especially watching him run the court and the minutes they gave him. They tried to give him short bursts of minutes. And so, Harry really struggled. There's no other way around that. He, obviously because of the injuries, but he struggled. Offensively, he was raw. He wasn't very developed. And really was limited to being more of a rim runner, a guy who could score off dunks, easy passes on lay-ins. But the problem with Duke, and I don't want to get too far into Duke, but they didn't have a point guard. So a guy like Giles wasn't set up to succeed as much as he could have been, and that didn't help him at all. He defensively as well, because they were giving up so much dribble penetration, he was killed as a pick-and-roll defender, and for that reason, he was taken off the court a lot of times, and much of the reason for why Emil Jefferson played pretty much all the minutes there at the center position. And on a one big team, obviously, there's only 40 minutes there at that spot, and so there's limited playing time for Giles, who was also competing with another touted freshman, Marquise Bolden, for minutes there. But, I've talked almost extensively here about the negatives on Giles and why he is such an enigma and why teams are going to, really be questioning whether they should take him, and why you should question if you take him, if your team takes him, rather. And so I want to talk, though, why this guy was so highly projected, so highly thought of. And it's because, for one, to me, he's an elite rebounder. And this was apparent even early on when he came back from his injury. This was a guy who, it just took him 4 games to put up 12 rebounds in a game, and he did that in only 17 minutes. Now, that didn't happen, obviously, every game, but he showed off the ability to be an elite rebounder. This was a guy whose head was near the rim on several occasions, and I know he's 6'10", and so he's got the size, but usually you don't talk about guys who have the size being elite rebounders. And so he's not a guy who gets it done, necessarily with the motor, like a guy like Kenneth Faried or Tristan Thompson, but he has an innate ability for being around the ball, and that's something that you shouldn't knock whatsoever. Now, I know earlier in this video I said he was very limited offensively, and I think he is. But he did show flashes, and I think part of the reason he didn't show it more often was, one, lack of playing time, which was caused by his injuries, and then, lack of conditioning and falling behind Emil Jefferson. But the second reason is he just didn't have confidence and lack of reps. And so if he gets those reps throughout this next summer in the Summer League, potentially, if they play him there, which is a question for whichever team plays him, do you want to risk it? And, throughout practice and just being healthy. But he did show off a nice turnaround jumper on occasion. Now, these are flashes and a baby hook that I did like. Defensively, I also want to add that, yes, he struggled in pick and roll situations, but as a help defender, this was a guy who could block shots. And so therefore, it should be taken into consideration for the next level that this is a guy who could profile, as, you're always looking for those five men who can block shots, defend the pick and roll, and score as a rim runner offensively. And on top of that, he's a very good rebounder, to elite rebounder. He's got the athleticism. You're wondering about the explosiveness coming back from these injuries, but he could have all the pieces that you look for in a center position. And he can play the foursome at times, the number 4 position, excuse me. And so, you look at his skills, you look at his weaknesses, and you ask, where is he going to be picked? And I think this is the biggest question to me. And when I look at him, you can't pick him honestly in the top 20 and really top 25. I think you can really only look at him in the last 5 picks of the first round and the second round of this year's draft, which if you were to say that the former number 1 pick or number 1 recruit rather would have been selected in that area, or even a top 3 guy, you'd have to go ask Cliff Alexander, who went undrafted. And I'm not going to say that Giles is in that territory, but I will say that it wouldn't be the most shocking thing in a very deep draft class with lots of talent that, doesn't have the concerns that Harry Giles does have. But if he is able to put it all together, this guy has, I don't want to say all-star potential, but very good starter potential, I think, in this league. And the only reason I'm hesitating on all-star is because, these injuries, they've taken their toll. I don't think there's any way you can look past that. There's a lot of hope and optimism that they wouldn't for his freshman season at Duke, but I think the last surgery kind of put him over the edge and really caused him to fall behind. He is still very young. He's got plenty of years ahead of him, but the question is, what happens if he has another injury? Is that it? And so that's definitely going to be the question mark for your team. But guys, I presented both sides of the argument here why you should pick him. He's got great upside, obviously, and athleticism and the ability to be that prototypical 5-man that teams want in today's NBA with, the additional potential offensive skills, because he can shoot it a little bit. But there's the risks, and that's why he's a late first to me to probably, a decent chance at being a second-round pick in this year's draft. But let me know what you guys think in the comments below. What other players you want to see me profile, and what do you think about this draft class as a whole? I want to hear from you guys in the comments, and as always, remember to subscribe for more great content. Give us a follow on Twitter, and I'm out.